I'm Richard Dodd, and you're listening to the Ecology Academy podcast. This is a show where we get to talk and learn about all things ecological, including interviews with top ecologists, both employers and employees, those working with ecologists, and also aspiring and inspiring career-seeking individuals setting out to make a difference. The show aims to provide you with insights, advice, and inspiration to help you succeed and excel as an effective ecologist and to make a real difference to our natural environment. Joining me today on the Ecology Academy podcast, I had the wonderful and enigmatic Suzi Cross, who is Managing Director at Ecosulis. So, good morning, Suzi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, we've had a quick chat, and I think it's best that you introduce yourself to the audience, because I say enigma, a bit of an enigmatic, an enigma figure. So I've had a slight problem trying to research a little bit about you. So Suzi, tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do with Ecosulis?
I guess the first point to make is that we shouldn't always rely on ChatGPT to do our research.
Exactly.
Secondly, I'm Suzi. An absolute pleasure to be on the podcast. And my career to date with Ecosulis for the last 20-ish years, I joined in an administrative capacity and slowly made my way up through the business, finally getting to managing director in 2020. I'm very happy to be here. I feel like it's part of my blood now, almost like my third child.
So you mentioned about 2020 there. So take us back then in terms of, I suppose, like a little bit about your career profile in terms of before you joined Ecosulis then. So let's run through, because you've not had a typical ecological career at all. So let's run through how you became managing director at Ecosulis. So run back maybe to I don't know, how far you want to take it back to Suzi.
I guess it's quite it's not a typical career, and I don't think necessarily that's a problem. Although as we mentioned earlier, sometimes you do kind of feel like an imposter. So I didn't go to uni, despite what ChatGPT has offered, but had a career in admin and senior admin, and then in print for 11 years, so completely unrelated, and applied for the job with what was called Conservation Consultancy at the time in 2004. And at the time it was a family-owned business. I was interviewed by the then, I think it was the operations manager or office manager or something, who actually has turned out to be a great friend ever since. And she was looking to move further with her career, so needed somebody to come in and manage all the office management stuff and admin, which I did, and became company secretary not long after. Ecosulis has gone through...
George, before we go on to that, so sorry, Suzi. So whereabouts was that? So in terms of whereabouts was it in the UK?
Oh yeah, it was in Bath.
In Bath, okay. Thank you.
So we were always a Bath-based company for many years, although worked nationally. And at the time, so 2005, we ran a competition internally to change the name from Conservation Consultancy to Ecosulis Limited. The name came from the fact that we were based in Bath, and Sulis was the springs, natural Roman springs in Bath, and eco obviously for ecology. So we rebranded, renamed, and moved forward. And then in 2007, had an employee buyout from the family-owned business through management and became an employee-owned cooperative, which we were for many, many years. And there are complexities to running an employee-owned cooperative, but it was fantastic, and I think definitely right for us at the time. And we were still based in Bath at that time, although we'd sort of moved out of what was the family-owned business home and got a bit bigger. So that was the journey at the sort of inception. And then as for my own career, just, I guess, working within the business, expanding as I wanted to progress my career. Became ops director in 2012, and then did that very nicely for a number of years. And then Kane decided, we had a conversation and we were thinking about our own careers and where we wanted those to go. Because I think in a small business, you if you're committed and you're not going to leave, you still want some sort of progression. And there is obviously a ceiling to how far that goes. He moved into CEO role. We had plans also to spin off another company, which he was going to also be CEO of. And I moved into the MD role.
Right. Okay. So let's take it back a little bit here then. So in terms of, say, that changeover in terms of the name from the conservation consultancy to Ecosulis. So in terms of, I suppose at that point, how many employees were with the company?
I think around 20.
Around 20. So it's still, it's still a good medium-sized company then at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were at the point of the first recession in 2008, we'd gotten up to 25.
Right.
And at that point, we had to cut about just under a third of our workforce.
And what sort of services were you providing at that point?
We were largely ecology based at that point. So delivering a lot of the full suite of ecological services and some habitat management, but they were largely secondary to the ecological services, mostly in and around the Southwest. So that was the core business at the time.
And obviously, lots of say ecologists within the company themselves, and you're brought in as operations manager. So, I mean, in terms of your responsibilities, I mean, how did that? I mean, first of all, why an ecological company to work for, and also, if I may ask a second question on that as well. I suppose, how did you, learn the ropes of what an ecological, consultancy, what ecological company, performed?
That's an interesting question, actually. And I think the only way to learn the ropes, especially if you haven't been trained as an ecologist, is just to get out there and watch people doing surveys.
Yeah.
So we were encouraged to do that. Even junior administrators and people like that would go out on surveys to experience what it was like. So I think that was fundamental to knowing and understanding also not only the work people do, but the conditions they do it under. And you and I touched on that survey season. When you're working alongside ecologists that are doing unsociable hours, and are really tired and coming in and having compensatory rest breaks, and understanding the dynamic of survey season, I think is really, really important for everyone in the business.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's something that's, and also to keep on top of as well, because obviously you're a managing director, I'm a managing director. Sometimes you can get, you can lose track of exactly what the wonderful colleagues are doing, and I suppose it is actually going back and being on that. I suppose doing that analogy about being on the shop floor, isn't it? Really, just walking in their shoes. Yeah. Okay, so okay. Yeah, so
one thing I would just say though, so when I joined, and I still do, have an absolute morbid fear of frogs and toads.
Oh my word!
Which was, I never released that information at interview. It wasn't until after, and I still do. But obviously, it's never kind of come in the way of our work. And I love great crested newts, bizarrely, and find the way they make those little parcels for their eggs just fascinating.
Do you know what? It seems like a confession time, and I don't know why this is. I also have I think I got over it now, but I also had a bit of a phobia of frogs and toads as well. That is,
oh my gosh!
That is spooky. I've never clearly met anyone who's the same as well. Yeah. I can tell you stories about my literally. I mean, the worst one was I was a protected species officer, and going to site. And I had to call in a colleague because there was a frog on a doormat, and I had to get them to. The owner wasn't there, and I couldn't knock on the door because there was a frog on the mat. Oh, I think I'm better now, but yeah.
Well, I'd be interested to know how you got over it, because I would love to, because I've had to have a frog door made for the back of my house so they can't come onto my doorstep.
Oh gosh, no, I think it was through I don't know what they do with
exposure.
It's like basically exposure, yeah. So I had to go out and just literally had to look at them for ages, and and then start to handle them. And I think it was the fear of handling them. Once I'd done that, I think I was okay.
I think for me, and it's the fact that they're so well camouflaged because they're so nature has made such a good job of they want to preserve them, that you don't know they're there until they've sprung out. And that for me is, I think, what it is.
Oh yeah, it could be that. Anyway, we're good off topic slightly. Yeah, but I've made a note of that. So that definitely wasn't in the biography, I must admit. So in terms of okay, yes, so exposure to obviously the work that so your ecologists do, and so let's take it a bit further now in terms of you're moving on from operations manager to managing director. So I mean, when was that, and sort of was it something you were looking for within the company as well?
Yes, definitely. I mean, Kane and I run the business and dovetail each other's strengths and weaknesses quite nicely. And I would always really, really enjoy it when he would go on leave and I would be left running the ship. Um, so it was a natural
Yeah.
progression, I think, for me. But I don't feel any job, you can just walk into and think I'm going to do it straight away, because there's always like a foot in the other camp. For example, we haven't appointed an ops director to fill my old role. I still do some of those tasks, and we've changed as a business, and I don't think we necessarily need one anymore. We're fully remote, so we don't have premises that need managing and facilities and things like that. So yeah, I think what we've instead probably are going to end up needing is probably someone to manage the very complex IT needs that we have now. We're fully remote. And when I say fully remote, we still have active site teams that are based locally where we have sites, but all of our officey based staff are remote.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, was that a decision that was that you made and you and Kane made together in terms of shifting from an office-based scenario to remote work then? Yeah. And what was the as I say, I mean, I'm sure there's more than one reason for the decision, but what were the sort of the key sort of points? What was the trigger in terms of moving to that sort of business model?
I suppose the largest trigger was definitely the pandemic, because we did it literally in the blink of an eye at the end of March 2020. However, I think what organically happened prior to that, our actual work areas had become way more national and way less focused in the southwest. So our big barn that we were renting in Bath from the Duchy of Cornwall had become quite empty. We'd sublet bits of it. There was only probably 10 of us in it at any one time. And it was a large footprint for a company to have that didn't really need that. So I think although the pandemic prompted it, we probably would have eventually moved into that type of model anyway.
Okay, so I mean, it's interesting that because, as I say, we know quite a few different companies that have made a decision to go fully remote. And I was at a meeting yesterday, and one of the companies that they employ, I mean, it wasn't anything relating to ecology or in the environmental field. They were just specialising in, I think it's IT resources, and they've got employees across the globe, really, who also are remote, and they're going about and say, well, some of these people I've never even physically met. We just recruited people and we've never actually physically met. So in terms of how that works for the company, and we'll go into a bit later because I know you do this internship, but in terms of I suppose new starters, for instance, what does your recruitment process and onboarding process look like?
So we've had to really revise that because I think one of the key areas to focus on is young people coming into the business and not being exposed to those cliche water cooler conversations, or you're having a conversation across an office and you're automatically picking up on bits of info that people are just saying and having conversations. So without those, we've had to design a really complex induction program, and I don't think it's not as good as sitting cheek by jowl with someone else, but I think with the right key people and having a buddy system, we're doing the best we can, and we are still managing to retain people, and we work really hard with our employee engagement and employee feedback so that we can identify where we've got issues, where people are feeling isolated. And we actually have now sprung up some small offices around the UK. So we've got one in Bristol that people can go and work in, so they can actually start adopting a hybrid working model if fully working from home doesn't work for them. We've got another one up in Buckinghamshire. We've got space in London, which is our head office now, and just various places where people can meet up. And I think, especially with new people coming in, depending on the role, it's really, really helpful for them to have some face-to-face contact.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's. I mean, every business is different. Every sector is different, and I don't think there's one solution. Clearly, there's not one solution for all. I mean, if we work for Elon Musk, I think we'd all be in an office. yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And likewise, as I say, the company I met with, and yourselves, fully remote, fully remote. So, I think there's no one size fits all approach. But I suppose in terms of, yeah, I mean, you mentioned about listening to the employees and in terms of what their needs are, and I suppose it depends upon the services you provide. But what sort of mechanisms have you had to change then to put in place in terms of supporting those new starters?
So, as part of our development, I've recruited an entire SLT, senior leadership team, and we've been able to invest in a head of HR. So somebody whose sole role is to look after our people has been absolutely pivotal for us. So she's designed a really great induction program, but alongside that, we were already running a system called Office Vibe, which collects feedback based on Maslow's hierarchy of need and the Gallup 12 questions of employee engagement. And it's not just about saying we are 80% actively engaged in our workforce, which we are, but it is about looking at the people who are not happy and being able to identify better communication is one of the ones that comes up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's definitely a symptom of us being remote. And we try really, really hard to, work on that, address it, and make it give information in the way people like to digest it. So some people like email, some people like Teams, some people like video, some people like face-to-face meetings, company meetings. So it's a combination of all of those. We've just started doing a quarterly town hall meeting, we call it, which is a sort of update from the whole senior leadership team. So now we've got one. It's nice for them all to be able to tell what we're doing, what we're working on, what our strategic objectives are.
And I suppose obviously you've got your new people coming into the company as well. This is, I suppose, for those who are coming into it brand new, they don't know any difference, as in this is the model this is the business model that you've been running, and they're very, they've come into it with open eyes. Was it a transitionary period between the existing employees that had to go through that? Okay, just before the pandemic, then they go, okay, we're in the office and now we're fully remote. Have you noticed any differences between the two sets of, say, groups, or is it all sort of it's all fine?
No, I think definitely there were differences, because I think you get used to working in a certain way. And we've had a couple of people leave who it just didn't suit them to work remotely.
Yeah.
And that's fine, and I think we realize that people are going to leave, and always want the people who go to have a positive experience and be able to look back and think, well, it was nice, but it didn't work for me then. So, but new people coming in, I think this is, like, as you say, this is the model they're coming into. They know from interview that it's fully remote with, occasional face-to-face if they want to. So I think having those expectations at the start makes it a lot easier.
Great. Okay. Now we talked about, obviously the company structure itself, but let's talk about Ecosulis in general then. So tell us what you do. And what you do well, because you've got a very good reputation in certain areas. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've worked really hard and recently rebranded, actually. So that's really helped us to define what we do. And we say that we're expert in nature-based solutions. And we are very, very passionate about applying rewilding principles throughout all of our work. So those are the sort of fundamentals. And we've set our, I think it's our 2030 goal or 2050 goal to rewild half the planet.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously that's not just us rewilding it with spades and doing it ourselves and, putting bison in and things like that. But it's through influence, and it's through the companies we spin off, and the book that Kane and Paul wrote, for example, and the influence that's had. So as a sort of senior leadership team, we meet quarterly and annually. I know you run the same system as us, to look at our goals and our strategic objectives and actually hold ourselves accountable. And I think being able to sort of actually look at those and think, yeah, we can track our progress, and we can see that we're on a trajectory to actually, and if we're not, we can make the relevant adjustments internally to make sure that we're still aligned, and having everyone aligned with that is absolutely fundamental.
Okay, so so this is something that we talked about before, wasn't it? About objectives and key results, OKRs. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can still have a conversation after
rocks.
Rocks. Exactly. Yeah, we might have a conversation off air about that. But, geek out about OKRs and so forth. Yeah. So,
it definitely, if you've got people aligned with your values and your mission, or whatever you want to call it, there's definitely a marked change in the amount of progress you can make. If you're having internal quarrels because somebody thinks you shouldn't be doing that, or they're just in it for the money, for example, because that's often not the case with values-led business, is it? You've got people who are so passionate about it. Obviously, they need to be paid, and fairly, but their passion is to get behind your vision. And that's the biggest change, I think, for us, is so when we recruit people, we're looking for people who match our values, or who demonstrate that they've got similar values that, they get behind. And I think it becomes very clear very quickly if you've got a new employee who somehow doesn't match those. And then it becomes quite difficult.
Yeah. So you use your values for recruitment and yes, as you say, that training, development, and ultimately holding people to an account.
Yeah, definitely. And that's through one-to-ones, through weekly meetings, and through just when we meet up. Sometimes we'll have sessions on our behaviours and what we expect and what we don't expect, but we get the staff to kind of feed into that to say, what do we think this core value means, and how do we feel we demonstrate it?
Okay, and that really ties in nicely with I know you for the past couple of years, maybe obviously a couple of years ago, you started an amazing journey in terms of looking into and examining, because you mentioned about your vision and values, about becoming a B Corp. And so, so congratulations on actually being certified as a B Corp there. So let's go back to that point. So how did you find out about the B Corp, and also why take it forward?
I actually can't remember where it started. I think Kane thinks we had a conversation about it. I have a menopause brain that remembers very little from that point. But it was during the pandemic. It was January. Maybe it was just before the pandemic, actually. But I remember being at home thinking, okay, we've got all those ISOs that are very tick boxy. You need to do them. You need to be compliant to be able to tender for works. That's fine. We've had them for years. They don't inspire me personally, because they are very kind of binary accreditations. And I thought the B Corp thing sounds really interesting. So I thought I'd just do the online questionnaire and see how we score. And we scored really, really well, because I think because we're values led, and because we care about our workforce, we care about the environment, we care about health and safety, all of the things within the questionnaire, I think scored really highly. And then I remember getting to the end and it said, and now if you want to become accredited, it will cost you 1,500 quid. And I thought, oh, whoa, that's a lot. Should we be going for this? I said to Kane, it's quite a lot, but I feel like we should go, because you can, when you look at your whole suite of accreditations and how much they cost you to stay accredited, work towards, be audited every time, it all adds up, doesn't it? And every new person you work for has another one that you should be a member of, to get onto their supply chain. Anyway, we went for it, and I thought, well, this will be great. I just didn't realize how long it would take in the accreditation process. I think it was something like 164 days it took us
to complete. Yeah.
And it wasn't really anything much happening in that period. It was, you're in a verification queue and it's just going to take ages. And maybe it was the timing of us doing it, because when did you guys do yours?
Yeah, so we started looking. So I think I can remember when I found out about B Corp, and it was actually, I went to a trade show, an exhibition down in London, and met with, I was looking around different stalls and found this one stand which was selling, they were selling products. They were selling bee bricks. And so, I'm looking at and these bat boxes, and they looked slightly different, and I inquired about them, and we had a chat, and this was green and blue, so based in Cornwall, and I got chatting about they had something about a B Corps on there, and this is 2018. So getting to your question, to the actual answer, 2018, and I think it just sparked a little bit, because one of my values is curiosity, and I think that's really sparked a little bit of an element of curiosity within myself, and found it a little bit more. So in terms of your journey then, so you started the process. Was it very much, okay, you had that conversation with Kane, but it was very much driven by yourself though, Suzi?
I think, because I'd been used to doing all of those kind of things. I know all the information because I created a lot of it because I've been here so long. But also there were legal bits. I think you'll be aware that you have to change your articles, and as company secretary and the person who has the login for Companies House, those sort of things were, excuse me, a little bit easier for me to do. So I decided not to really even delegate any of it. I thought because it was the pandemic and it was such a weird place to be, I thought this is a really cool project to do in the pandemic. Yeah. So I'm just going to do it. And I think also, part of the reason was it was just at the time when Kane had published his book and I'd just become MD. It was around that time. And I thought, I want to have an achievement that I've managed to kind of push through myself as well, coming back to the imposter syndrome. So it was just something. And even now, at the moment, we're now looking at awards for this coming year, because I'm always sort of thinking, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? So that was definitely the driver behind the B Corps, and it was such a cool accreditation to get. Have you had to re-qualify yet?
Yeah, we recertified last year. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's
was that a difficult process or not?
It's changed. Yeah. So obviously, I'm sure we'll go through another change as well. So obviously, when we first certified, as you say, going through this questionnaire, the BIA, it took us a long time to do that, and then the recertification. Oh my word! Yeah. Oh, they've changed the questions as well. So it's like, oh right, we was. Again, trying to find the information and some of the obviously you have to demonstrate. You can't just say, oh yeah, we're committed to reducing our carbon footprint by 50% by 2050. No, okay, those are just words. Tell me how you're going to do it. What have you done so far? And
that's what I like about it though. It's not just you can't just faff through it and make it up and kind of wing it, can you? You do need to prove that you're putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, and I suppose, I'm interested in this then. So my question to you here is about, you mentioned about the binary aspects of the ISOs, and perhaps we'll explain what an ISO is. So it's quality assurance, and is it management of the environment as well? Those are the two?
So we've got three, which is 9, 14 and 45,001, which is quality, environment and health and safety. And those are kind of like the holy trinity of things that you need when you're tendering. I think it makes it a lot easier when you're tendering to be able to tick a box to say you've got it. If you haven't got it, then you just have to start uploading quality bits and pieces and various documentation, whereas it's a lot easier to be able to just tick the box to say you've been UCAS accredited by an external auditor. Actually, that was something that I decided I would then add to my CV, was to do an external QMS auditor course, because I actually am a bit of a geek and I like compliance. And it's really important to us that we are, again, even though it's a binary accreditation, if we say we're doing it here, we should be doing it here. And it's one of my sort of passions to make sure that we maintain the quality. And that's been a real challenge, being remote. Being able to see where people are kind of, especially when you've got a lot of new people coming in, that even though they've been trained in how to do certain review and approve procedures and processes, you're not hearing, oh, there's a report going out, and someone goes, oh, has that been reviewed? And sometimes things can just slip through. So that's been a big challenge being remote, I think. But even though, yes, they are binary, they're really important to us as a business.
Okay, so going through for the ISO accreditations, then it was, yes, there was a reason behind it, as in terms, there's a reason behind everything, most things. So there's a reason that it'll help you with your tender tender process, and winning work. So it's sort of aimed towards that. So why go for certification with B Corp?
Because none of those qualifications really cover any of the really, really important elements, like how you treat your workforce, how you're demonstrating what you're doing with the environment and being able to positively impact that. So none of them really hit those marks. And I think B Corp absolutely does. And as I said, I don't think it's easy to fudge it. So it was very, very meaningful accreditation.
Yeah, I know. I think the process for us was, similar to your own in terms of there was no real need for us. There's no box on a tender to say, "Are you a B Corp?" There's nothing there at all. So it's a purely voluntary basis, isn't it? And you're quite passionate about it now as well. Obviously you got there, and now you're sort of an advocate for B Corp. So I mean, what would you say to others who are considering going going for a B Corp certification?
Well, I would say my first piece of advice is just take the B impact assessment as you've done. It's just even if you don't go forward and pay the money and do the end of the next bit, it gives you a measure of how you're measuring up against the things you should really be doing as a business, I think. And I think one of the things I wish there was more of with B Corp, it's still, if you go onto I don't know if you're a member of Beehive,
yeah,
you go onto that ever, there's a lot of things that go on in America because it started there, and there's many more companies that are B Corp over there. Over here there's less, and it would be nice to get involved in some more things. I think there's some stuff that went on in Bristol recently actually with B Corp, but to get behind some of their initiatives, I think would be really good. And that's the bit that I found a bit missing when looking. I thought, right, we've done the qualification. Now let's get behind some initiatives. Let's do some stuff to demonstrate that we're really active. And I guess, balancing that with real life business as well. There's a limit to one's time, isn't there?
There is. But, I say, you've gone for that process in terms of, you mentioned there about, the different elements. There's the governance, there's the, the workers, the environment, community, and clients as well. Because, we have to take, obviously we do take our responsibility. Who do we work for? Why do we work for them? Are there people we will not work for? I think it really challenges you to engage with your clients as well as your workforce in terms of making a difference. I mean, have you found that? I mean, what differences has there been? Have you seen or made since becoming a B Corp? Do you think?
I'm not sure at the moment that we have, because I don't think we were doing anything particularly different before, and I think we're still quite young in the journey. I think one of the things I'm really passionate about is making sure that the company are behind it and all the employees are recognize that this is something that we as a business are part of and want them to be proud of as well. So I think if I could set aside some time when my senior leadership team are fully, they're onboarded now, and soon there's going to be more time for me to sort of look at things that I want to do with the business that are kind of the value add things that make working for Ecosulis, one of the things we're looking to become as an employer of choice. So all of the bits that we do, including being a B Corp and how we treat our workers and all of that, will feed into that. And I think when you first join a company, and especially if you've never heard of it, a lot of people have never heard of B Corp, have they?
No, that's very true. Yeah.
So I want to make it meaningful for people within the business, not just it's like something we put on the website.
Yeah. Yeah, I think how it's helped us really, it's from a client's point of view. Obviously suppliers, we've changed suppliers based upon making a positive difference there. So we've looked at things there. But in terms of our clients, I think it's engaging with them to say, okay, as you say, hardly have ever heard of B Corp before. So it's having that conversation about why we've gone, why we went for the accreditation, the certification, our journey through it, and also I think it attracts a certain client base to us as well. I think we can have those. It gives us an inroad and a bit of an engagement tool, I suppose, really to open those discussions and then go, oh right, and I think it sparks their interest. And I think we've certainly noticed a little bit of a change in some of our client base, some clients coming forward to us that go, well, they don't say explicitly, "Oh, we recognise you're a B Corp." They don't say that, but they'll just say, "We know you take a different approach to work than others, and that's what we like, because it reflects, it mirrors what they either do or want to do.
I think going back to my comment about there not being much around for in the Southwest or with B Corp, maybe we should start something.
Oh well, you heard it here first, folks.
Heard it here first, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Actually, if it's nothing's there, you build it yourself. That's very true. No, yeah. Again, another conversation to take away from this, then, Suzi. So,
definitely.
We talk about, so the B Corp part is also with clients, but also about the work as your workforce, and you've also set up, which I think is an amazing, absolutely inspirational part, which is your rewilding internships as well. So perhaps you could spend a little bit of time talking about how long that's been going for, what it's about, and are you actively recruiting anyone at the moment?
So to start at the end of that question, we are actively recruiting at the moment for 5 interns. And I've spoken to some of our interns in preparation for the podcast today, and got some feedback on what they wish they'd known before they applied. And none of them regret it, obviously, spoiler alert. But one of our interns we badged them as rewilding interns, but they were going to always do bits and pieces within the whole business. So one of them started out as a bid intern working on rewilding quotes and things like that. But prior to that, she'd had a career in various other sectors and had said that one of the things she liked about our internship was there wasn't a really complex recruitment process. There wasn't a huge application form. Because I think when you're not going to be applying for one internship, are you? You're probably going to be applying for 5 or 6. And it's exhausting doing an application 6 times. So she was saying that she really valued the process, and also the fact that her softer skills that, so outside of uni and outside being a graduate, some of the things she'd done whilst working at uni, for example, had really helped her in her role with us. And I think, so we've had a number of interns who joined on the programme and who are doing jobs, for example, now like a nature recovery project officer, nature fintech developer, bid coordinator, ecosystem analyst, and rewilding services lead. So we've taken them in on their 1-year internship and then been able to offer them employment permanently within the business. And that's what we aim to do. I mean, sometimes we can't because we don't have the correct opening for that person, in which case we'll help them with their CV, we'll utilise our networks, and we'll enable them to go forward and actually find a career with another consultancy.
And I suppose go right to the start, the very heart of why set up these internships. I mean, why is it something that Ecosulis have implemented? Rather than just going, do you know what, we'll just recruit at an assistant level. Why internships in particular?
I think we identified that one of the things that was really important to us was to grow our own talent and to grow future talent for the industry generally. And there are kind of passions and wishes beyond it just being an internship. So we'd like it to be bigger. But this is how we're starting it at the moment. And it takes quite a lot of internal resource to manage it. Because we want to make sure they're looked after properly and that they're getting a repeatable program that we are able to kind of show what their learning outcomes are from. So it's not just bring them in, pay them a minimum wage, and get really cheap labour, because that's definitely not what we're about. But we've got a lot of internal knowledge in the business. We've got PhD people. We've just set up an innovation team. So, there's a lot to be learnt within the company, really. And I think that's really important and valuable for people who are just coming out of uni. And it gives them a very broad spectrum of, you might work. So we've got somebody at the moment who's doing what we're calling a business internship. And she is an environmental graduate. But she's doing 3 months researching in nature recovery on a rewilding program. She's going to be doing 3 months in marketing. So she's going to get an idea of what it's like within other sectors of the business as well. Mm-hmm. There'll be 3 months in our habitats department. So she might be a bit more hands-on then, might get out on, spades in the ground, boots on the ground. And then 3 months probably within the ops team, yet to be confirmed. But so that particular internship is going to be sort of multifunctional.
I think it's absolutely great. And you mentioned one word, which I think in one way epitomizes, it it's the one word I would describe Ecosulis, and that's innovative, because you seem to be at the forefront, at the cutting edge, or so I suppose, the science we're in at the moment, because of the times we're living in, and the emergency we found ourselves in terms of biodiversity loss and the climate crisis here. But so you've obviously identified, spotted that actually these things need addressing. You're doing something about it, and you're creating new green jobs. And I think that's something I really, really admire about Ecosulis, is this forward-thinking approach. And I suppose, I'm probably leading the question here, but that's obviously down to the senior management team.
Yeah, definitely. And Kane, whilst he doesn't work so actively in Ecosulis, day to day now, because he's CEO and he's managing credit and HR, other business as well. A lot of these ideas do generate from him. He's a great innovative thinker, probably the original one for us. So, but now we've got a team to get behind those ideas. We're able to implement them much, much more effectively.
That's it. And in terms of, say, you develop these internships, and I imagine also we obviously the regular employees within the company as well. There's that aspect of growing your own, nurturing your own talent in terms of there, and in terms of career progression. You mentioned about, I think it's a wonderful example there of one particular role where they're not just doing one job, one particular role, the operations side. They're actually getting involved with sales, marketing, having a holistic view of the company itself, and it enables up. I can see that it enables up sort of like a, rather than a ladder style career, it's a lattice style career. They're there, so they
That's
could go
really
into
good point. Yeah.
they can go into many different roles within your company.
Also, isn't it really important though that somebody who comes into the business that with a huge passion for ecology or rewilding, whatever it is, knows that actually in a consultancy, you're not getting just fed money from the government. You have to earn it, and you have to be profitable. And some of those business operational things that we all know have to be done, which aren't the super exciting things like marketing and operations and auditing for ISO and things, it gives them a taste of why those are important. So it shows them the much, much bigger picture.
Yeah, I think absolutely so, and I think you need those different sort of characters within traits and behaviours and attitudes within the company themselves. If you want, you need someone who's extremely technical. If you've got a job to do that needs focus, attention to detail, you want someone who has those particular skills there. Whereas if you want someone to inspire, to motivate someone, they could be, the total opposite at the end of the spectrum. Maybe the obviously overlapping sort of traits there. And so you mentioned about one of your employees. I think we're talking about the soft skills, but
yeah,
I think technical skills. Technical skills, you've got to have a passion for them and you can learn them, but soft skills is something intrinsic within you, I think.
I think so too. And we do personality profiling actually for new people, well, everyone in the business, because we find it really, really interesting to observe how people interact together and what their motivators are, and also so that we can ensure that they sit in the right seat in the business. We're not asking people who find it super uncomfortable to cross-sell and do business development because we know it's not their strength. And we've been doing this for years. And periodically we'll all get together and we have a guy that does it for us. He'll come in and we'll have quite a fun afternoon talking about personalities, because people like talking about themselves, don't they? And so I know, for example, how to communicate best with Kane. I know, because not just because I've known him so long, but because he's a certain personality type, I know that I'll get his attention quicker if I say, can I grab a quick 5 minutes? If I said, can we sit down for 6 hours and discuss strategy, he'd be running for the hills.
Yeah. Oh, great.
And it's really important. And I think you recognize that with clients as well. You pick up the phone to a certain client and you know that they don't want to talk about how their weekend was. They just need to get to the point really quickly.
Yeah, I think it's understanding people, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And that is a soft skill, isn't it?
Yeah. I recommend a great book. I don't know if you've read it at all, but what's Surrounded by Idiots? I don't know if you've read that book at all.
No, I haven't.
Oh my word! Yeah, well, that goes into the different profiles,
Okay.
And for anyone we're going to lose a few people, I'm sure, now, but yeah, whether it be red, green, yellow, blue people type thing. Blue people very technical, green people extremely caring, red people seem to be very authoritative and slightly aggressive, and your yellow people are very extrovert, and clearly no one's just one pure type.
No.
But I think the book basically it is like, okay, why can't I interact with this person? This person never gets me, and yeah. So I think it's a good book to read. So surrounded by idiots. Yeah.
Are you willing to reveal your colour?
Me, well, yeah, it's more towards greeny, yellow, and occasionally a bit of red coming through. I suppose the one that I didn't mention there is the blue, only if I have to get my attention to detail.
Is your accountant blue?
Yes, yes. So our accountants, so those who are highly skilled, technically, they tend to be more blue area people, and I fall into the more, let's say, middle ground. I suppose is yellow, but I'm not an extrovert, high extrovert. You don't have to be an extrovert to be yellow, by the way.
No.
But yeah. Anyway, we've probably lost a few people. Let's bring them back again. In terms of your recruitment around there, the progression within the company for your new team there. In terms of like career advice, because I think we're coming towards the end of our conversation, I'm afraid, Suzi. It's gone by so quickly. But in terms of career advice that either you or some of your colleagues may have put forward, what would you pass on in terms of advice to someone looking or even thinking about advancing their career within the sort of the environmental sector?
So when you're looking, I think it's really important that you find a company who does have values that match your own. And I think also remembering at interview that you're interviewing the company as much as they're interviewing you, because you want to see if they're a right fit for you, because you're not going to be happy in a company that it just doesn't fit, their values are slightly off. So talking about the company's vision and ethos and their culture is really, really important. And also to have a chat around, if they're talking about their vision interview, for example, asking about how they plan to get on that journey, what are their long-term strategic goals, which I know can seem quite scary when you're just at a junior level. But I think it's important, even if you're talking about expanding your career and going higher up, you need to find out how you are going to be part of those goals as well, because it's nice to feel that you're an intrinsic part of that journey. And also the different work streams that are available within that organization, because you might join going for a job that you think this is going to be the dream job for me, and you get in it and you think this just isn't. And it's important to know what other opportunities there are within a business, I think. Yeah, no, I absolutely totally agree. I think it's you apply for one job, but it's not necessarily the job you'll end with, because recruitment it's challenging. And again, this meeting I went to yesterday, people were saying when they when I was a boy, literally I had to plead for a job. And now it's the opposite. It's like, what can you do? Why should I work for you? Exactly. And I think that's actually it's different, isn't it, for us who've been around for a long time? But yeah, completely different landscape now for people coming into a new company. But otherwise, I think you have to follow your dreams and also recognize that you're probably not going to be doing the same job for the next 40 years, especially as they raise the retirement age all the time.
Indeed. Yeah, we could go into a bit of a political stance there, but no, it's true. Yeah. So it is a career. You are working for the majority of your life within. Most of us. Some people are maybe lucky enough not to do that, but in terms of, I suppose, getting the most out of life and work, or as a career itself. What do you get out of your job then, Suzi? I'm putting you on the spot a little bit there, but what do you really enjoy about the work you do?
I really enjoy the people within the company, and it's really important for me to know all of them. So I always try and meet them when they come in. Obviously, I'm probably mostly on Zoom or Teams, but get out to site as well. So it's really important as an MD, I think, to be visible and not just sit, strategizing from your chair. But I really enjoy the people. But more than that, I think, so our vision to rewild half the planet, I think it was 2013 when we had a meeting and Kane introduced the concept of rewilding, and probably 80% of the company were like, that sounds great, but actually how does that apply to me? I fast forward 10 years, because it's only 10 years, and everyone within our business knows what part they play in the rewilding journey that we're on, which is a huge cultural shift, I think.
Yeah, amazing.
So I really enjoy the fact that we're all on, going in the same direction. Nobody's sort of pulling back. There used to be people in the business you felt didn't quite get it, and that would slow things down. So sometimes I think you have to think about your journey not being too fast, because you go forward and then you need to consolidate, and then you go forward again and you need to consolidate, and to ensure that, you're not just expanding beyond the realms of what's possible. But yeah, it's exciting times. And I love the fact that, and within our business, I think anyone can come up with a great idea and we'll look at it and think, yeah, that's good. And that's the beauty of having an innovation team now, I think, looking at new service areas that are exciting that we didn't think were possible before.
Right. Okay. And in terms of, I suppose, you're getting in touch with yourself, as in connecting with you at all, where's the best place to do that?
LinkedIn,
probably. Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of, I'll say, finding out more about these internships, where should people go to find out more about those?
So we've got them all on our website, www.ecosulis.co.uk. And our recruitment guy is Josh. So he will be managing all of that. But yeah, all the internships are listed out there. And we've already had quite a lot of applications. So I think we're closing end of next week. So we would be interested to hear from anyone who's up for a challenge.
Well, for those who are listening now, so I think this is going to go out in, I'm afraid it's going to go out in, where are we now? Yeah, May. So they may have just missed the deadline, I'm afraid.
Well, they can always send a CV in.
Indeed, yeah. So you take speculative CVs then?
We do all the time, because you never know what opportunities are going to present themselves. So I think we're constantly sort of looking for people, and we have a churn of, a talent pool that we want to keep and develop and keep in touch, because we might receive a whole bunch of CVs, and the job that we're planning to start moves always forward and never starts the date it's going to say it's going to start. So we work really hard to kind of keep those people engaged, and it might be that we can offer placements. So that was one of the other things I was going to mention, actually, placements and apprenticeships as well, which we've done in the past.
Okay, great, fantastic. Suzi, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. I've really enjoyed our time together, and it's gone by so quickly. But just want to say, Suzi Cross, thank you so much for joining us on the Ecology Academy podcast.
Thanks, Richard.
If you enjoy our show and want to help, then please click on the subscribe button and rate us on your favourite podcast player, as that's how you can inspire ecologists in the making, help retain great talent, and provide insights of our industry to a much wider audience of why ecology really does matter. Thank you.